All right. We are recording and people will start coming in. Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another CSINext monthly webinar. I'm going to give people a few minutes to join us. So I will let you trickle in. We've got our lovely guests here. We've got Doug Hague and Margaret Fisher from AWI, who are going to give us a really great presentation on the new woodwork, architectural wood casework. Yeah.
Yep.
And so that should be, and that's really new. It's hot off the presses almost, so to speak. So we're gonna get in on the ground floor. So come on in, make yourself comfortable, pour yourself a cup of coffee, get ready for a great presentation. Just as I say, I usually give it about 5 minutes to let people float in. So I see we've got 8 people. I'm hoping we're gonna get a few more. It's lovely to see you all. Be sure to mark on your calendar for next month's presentation, which is going to be April 14th. And that's going to be how enriching spaces became the healthiest building in Ohio, with Don Schwartzman and Yasha Og. It should be a great presentation. It's coming out of our good friends in the Ohio Great Lakes District about a zero energy super green building and how you can actually do it. So that should be a great presentation. And I know that's a topic that we all have to deal with sooner or later. All right. So I normally do a little presentation of whoever's gotten an award or something. I don't have anybody. I don't have
award winners today.
No, nobody noteworthy. I mean, everybody's noteworthy. let me backpedal on that. All of our members are noteworthy. I am not aware of anyone, or nobody has told me that so-and-so won an award this month so that I can publicly recognize them.
All right, fair enough.
I do publicly recognize that all of our CSINext members are fantastic and wonderful and brilliant people.
Well, George put his hand up, so I think he has won an award, and he is ready to tell us about it. And then he put his hand down, so maybe not.
Wade, what did you have something to say, Wade? If you do, put your hand up and I'll let you speak.
Catherine, you make me smile. When I was at the university, I once gave a referee presentation, and statistically, I'd love to tell you 50% of the people loved it. The other one could care less. So, yeah. It's all about how you use statistics, and you say we got 8, and I say I'm excited.
All right. Well, we go for quality, and quality, that's not necessarily quantity. It's anyway, I am going to give it another minute or so, but then I'm going to hand it off to our good buddy here, yes, I can speak, Doug Hague, who is the fearless leader of AWI, American Woodwork Institute. He is the CEO and has promised not to let that go to his head. But he has all sorts of experience in the wood industry. He's a self-proclaimed woodwork nerd.
There you go.
And is going to tell us, he's going to introduce himself to us, and he's going to tell us all about the fabulous new standard that's coming up. So I'm going to, Dave, what up? Doug, why am I calling you Dave? I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
It's all right.
Why don't you go ahead and put your PowerPoint up, and we'll let you take it away.
All right. Well, I heard somebody chime in there, so if they've got a comment before I get started, feel free to share.
Well, they are all muted. So if you do,
all right.
Oh, by the way, if you have questions, please throw them in the Q&A or in the chat. I'm going to keep an eye on both of those while Doug is talking, and we'll interrupt his flow if we have questions. And if we can't interrupt him, we'll wait till the end.
All right. Well, Catherine, thank you. And for everybody with me today, thank you for taking the time to spend with us. I've been told I've got an hour, and so it looks like I got 55 minutes left, and we'll make the most of it. I will not give you a whole bunch of my background and give you more of hopefully what you showed up to hear. Again, we are grateful. We are sponsors of CSI, and Catherine gave me this nice CSINext button in Nashville. So if you were at Nashville, maybe I got to shake your hand, maybe not. But if not, AWI is active. You see Margaret Fisher here on the screen also with me. that we are active supporters of CSI and like to work alongside them. And so if we can ever be a resource to you or here to answer questions, please know that we feel that we are obligated to serve the design community. We have the standards, but it takes the design community to specify us to make the system work. And so we want to be here to help. We have a standards director of standards who that's all he does and focuses on. And he's more than happy to field phone calls and to assist along the way. So with that, I'm going to jump right in. Today, this is an AIA accredited presentation. So if you would like your 1 hour credit CEU, please put that in the chat and Margaret will pick that up and she will take your number and apply that accordingly. And we can be in communication with Catherine about that.
And if you registered with your AIA number, we will also make sure that that gets to Doug and Margaret. So
perfect. All right, that'll save people some time then. All right, well, let's jump in and get started. This is just who we are. I said I'm going to go very, very quickly today, and I promise this is the description. We will hit this and more. I promise you we will learn some stuff, and I'm not going to read screens to you. What I do want to start with, and this is a fun cartoon that Margaret always gives me to begin, and it is that, hey, you guys are spec writers, you get it. Or if you're not a spec writer, you're an architect or somewhere in the process thereof. I'll say design community today to keep myself out of trouble. But when we talk about speaking the same language, so this fun thing says, hey, this is how the customer explained it. And then you can see all the renditions of how everybody thought it was going to be. There is one on here. This one is not very nice. This is how the project was documented. And then lastly, this is what they actually needed. So anyways, just some fun stuff for us to remember as far as standards and their purpose. For those of you who are familiar with AWI, this is where I try and generate some interest. So I do have the participants up. If you will use the show of hand button, it will be curious to see how far back we can go here. And what I have is what year or which book did you start using AWI specifications out of? Or we get to the very end, you go, hey, I'm not even very familiar with this. I don't know what they would be. So here we go. This is the first one, started in 1961. And then we went through some renditions here. And right about here, we should be hitting the 70s. And then here we get into the 80s and then 1994. So I typically pause here because sometimes we get, there we go. Joseph Martin raised his hand and says he's the winner at 1994. Joe, I am right after you. This 1999 was my college textbook here. Janet and Wade, I see you raised your hand. I don't know if that was the 94 or the 99, but yes, and that college textbook is still right behind me there. And I've hung on to that for quite some time. So then we rolled into, this is where, if you'll notice here on the labels, we had AWI, and then we joined with AMAC out of Canada, and we produced quality standards illustration. And then I think people are very familiar with the AWS2 when WI, AWI, and AMAC harmonized to produce not one, but two standards here. And so we had edition 1, edition 2, and edition 2, we came out with a red line version thereof. It was at that moment that AWI said, hey, we have a prescriptive standard. The design community has gone towards ANSI and ISO, which are performance standards. And so AWI leadership voted to abandon the prescriptive side of things and lean more on the performance side of things. And we went to ANSI to become an SDO, which is a standard development organization. This is just quickly how the procedure works. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here today, but I will comment where we are in our process with some of the standards we have written. This is our current standard, and this news is so new. Let's see, I've got 8 of you here. You're kind of sworn to secrecy. I told Catherine at the beginning, I said, I'd probably get myself in trouble for saying it, but I bet I end up saying it. This that you see on our screen is our current ANSI approved standards. If they say the word ANSI by them, you see these three. The first three we called a primer section, and they did not go through the public comment aspect side of things. But as I go to the next screen, what you're going to see is it's going to say some are in process. Well, what I'm not supposed to say, but I'm going to say is, come on, computer. This, it won't let me highlight. The 0400 factory finish has completed the ANSI process. And that was as of Thursday of last week. So that news is 7 days old. We haven't made any public announcements. There's still a lot of paperwork that happens. And then we have to set a publication date, and then we set an effective date. So you might not see this again for another 6-9 months, but you can say, aha, I showed up to a webinar and I heard that first and I knew it was coming. Also, 1236 countertops and 1232 manufacturing casework. So you can see these are division 12 type items. They also, I have to be very cautious with my wording here. We have taken it all the way through the ANSI process. They have not been acknowledged by ANSI yet, but I would say we're a few days and some paperwork away from that happening. So that is spectacular news, because if I come back to this list, now this list grows by 3, and we are getting closer and closer to completing our journey. Here is what our group is currently working on. Wood paneling is really where we're at. Millwork, we have got that done, but we're hanging on to it until we can finish wood trim. The difference between millwork and wood trim, one is custom profiles and the other is kind of off the shelf stock profiles. That will then put us in the home stretch of wood door frames, assemblies, and integrated door opening assemblies. And then specialty casework is one that is on our radar. We have a draft done, but we know that that's in addition to our previous standard. And so this will kind of be the icing on top of the cake once that is completed. This year, our board chair has set a goal that, hey, get all of these 4 remaining here, get them through or started in the ANSI process by the end of the year. So I would say we're on pace or close. We might run a month or 2 behind, but excited to finally see the light at the end of the tunnel, to see these come through, knowing how close, knowing this one's done, and this one is close to being ready for the process. So that's a big, broad update on where we're at. Today's presentation is to focus on the Architectural Woodwork Standard. By show of hands, George has got his hand up. I don't know if that's a question or from a previous one. And again, if you got a question, let me know. But how many of you have seen this casework standard and are familiar with it? I'm trying to decide how much information to give you or how much I can step on the accelerator and go. So have you seen this before, this document? Or if I bring this over and I say, have you been to our webpage and here is our standards for free right here? Have you been here and have you seen and know about this standard? Can anybody raise their hand? All right, nobody is raising it. Oh, Wade says he uses it regularly. Awesome. Well, Wade, this thing has only been out since June of 2020. So it's coming up on its 2-year birthday. But, you know, standards take a while to get implemented and to see them in specs. And so we are seeing it used more and more, which is exciting because it allows us to take advantage and benefits of a performance standard. I see that Mark also has his hand up. So fantastic. I'm going to lean on you two as experts as I get into this presentation and some of the benefits of the standard. And I am trying to keep the last 10 minutes for you time to communicate and ask your questions if you're too shy to type in the box to me along the way. So we say, hey, how do you make a standard great? Or we think we have a great standard, you can make it better by using our quality certification program. If you're not familiar with that, it's an inspection process that basically makes sure that you receive what you specified. We say per project documentation. So if you're not familiar with that, that's a whole nother separate presentation, but obviously we endorse it. All right, this is why we want our casework to end up when things go right and written per the specs and towards the end use. I say in our standard developments, there's 3 audiences we have to have in mind. Those 3 audiences is number 1, the owner or the end user. So obviously when this room, they wanted a break room with a refrigerator and a nice coffee machine, and it had to function, I'm assuming meeting ADA standards there with the open sink. So I feel like that has been accomplished. Number 2, our standards have to work for the design community so that you have trust in us that we will deliver what you are putting your face or name on in front of your customer, who is the end user. And so assuming here that maybe they specified this as custom grade, and you can see the matching of the veneers here going up and through. So that would probably fall into the premium grade as I speak off the cuff here, but you can see it delivered the intent that the designer, design community, architect, whomever it may be, wished when they started this job. And then lastly, our standards have to work for the manufacturer who is making and producing these items. Here's another example of when things work together and work nicely. So we went back to our older format. I know if you followed the AWS2, it's very numerical and reads very legalese. And so we went back to kind of the simplistic paragraph and chart form as you read through our standard. Next up, to modernize ourselves with the rest of the world, just for fun in the chat box, how many countries are left that still use imperial measuring units? Curious to see how many people are on top of their trivia game. But I will help you out. It's single digits. And so 2, the answer is 3 last time I Googled it. So perhaps somebody else has changed the metric, but 3 was my last Google answer. And so obviously we have adopted the same thing, but not everything translates well. So we've had to adopt a decimal fraction equivalency that we use, and we call those soft conversions. So when you see that throughout the standard, no need to panic. All right, here is the drum roll and kind of where performance comes into play and how we had to split it out. For those of you who said, hey, Janet said, I started using it in 1970. Wade says, hey, I used the 1999 version, which that's the green version. Wade, you win being paired up with me. But when you did that, you specified custom, economy, or premium, and that was level of aesthetics and level of construction. There was no differentiator between the 2. We're trying to now maximize your resources and your opportunities of design. So we have now split structural versus aesthetics. So why is this important, or what can this do for you as specifiers? Well, I hope it allows you to maximize your end users' resources, i.e. dollars sometimes, when you are specifying. Here's how. Previously, let's say that you are specifying a hotel. Okay, well, when people walk into that hotel, in that main area, they need to be wowed. So there sets a cabinet over there against the wall, and we want Macassar ebony with a full fill finish and a sheen, you know, that we can do our hair in type stuff. But what honestly will that cabinet ever do or function? It's probably going to hold a vase, or it might hold 2 magazines, something of that. Now, I know I'm being dramatic, but I hope you get the picture with me. Previously, I would have had to specify premium grade cabinet to get that Maxar, you know, ebony, beautiful veneer, full fill finish, etc., which also meant it's going to be built like a tank and it will last for 40, 50, 60 years. Well, we know that hotels turn over their lobby space and they have to stay up to date and everything else. And they really don't need that cabinet to last 40 or 50 years. So should somebody have this, or should you specify a premium grade cabinet with a duty level 1? Well, now this gives a manufacturer the opportunity, have they spent the money for R&D that they have duty levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, that they could then bid that thing on bid day, giving you the veneer, but then giving you the structure behind it to just hit duty level 1. Now, as we talk about duty levels, this first screen we see it on, you're going to see it a little bit more throughout. Know that if you have a duty level 4, it qualifies for 3, 2, or 1. So some manufacturers just go get a duty level 4 and they say, hey, I'm good for everything. Some, though, manufacturers are seeing the opportunity for savings passed on to the owner of saying, hey, I'll do the research and I'll find a duty level 1 and I'll find a duty level 4 so I can offer, whatever it may be. And those are all business decisions. So when I say this, what I don't want you, the specifier, to get caught in the middle of is you're like, hey, I heard this presentation. This guy once said that you can give me a duty level 4 and it's going to save me money. I want to be clear. If they only have a duty level 4 and you ask for a duty level 1, there won't be any savings, because they're going to go, well, I'm going to have to research and design it. I'm going to have to go get tested, and then I can give you a duty level 1, and all that's going to cost money. Now, if you put it out before bid day, and you put it in there, that gives those people who have strategically aligned themselves with the duty levels an opportunity to compete and perhaps show a better number on bid day. I hope I've been clear. Sorry that Zoom doesn't allow for me to see your actions, whether you're smiling and you get it, or you're like, hey, Doug, quit beating a dead horse and let's move on. So here we go. We're moving on. Let's talk about that same hotel in their copy room back there, or even in their janitorial closet. You're probably going to have some cabinets. It's not going to serve to wow anybody, but it needs to be an absolute workhorse. It's going to have copy paper or chemicals or something thrown in it. And we don't care how pretty it is. We just need to make sure it works. Well, there you could assign an economy grade aesthetics and then marry it up with the duty level 3 or duty level 4. When you see these numbers for 3 and 4, I think you're going to be blown away, if you have not researched it, about how much weight is put on them during the testing process. All right, so here we go. I said, just like the old standard, we've covered you with defaults. So if you specify us and don't get anything, we've got your back. The default here is duty level 3 and custom grade. If you're following along to any of our old standards, custom grade was our default for everything. All right. We know that the term unless otherwise specified always carries ourselves. And so that is no surprise to us. And so there it is. And obviously that's your job as specifiers to go in addition to, but that's where I talked about your number 2 on our, hey, do our standards work? Have we built that trust, knowing that we've got your back here with what you're doing? All right. Materials and manufacturing, we know that can be a challenge. And so what we have done is said, hey, here's an opportunity. Do we really care what materials as a specifier? Do we really care how that cabinet is made or engineered, or do we care about a performance? Because let's pretend that your standard institutional cabinet is white melamine with a plastic laminate outside. Okay, I think that's pretty common. Now let me start asking, do you care if it's MDF, if it's particle board, if it's ag fiber, whatever it may be? And if you do, and there's an exact reason why, then those things are still important. But if you go, hey, look, I really look at it as plastic laminate and melamine, I don't really consider what's in the middle of it. Well, that's important because as people start using this standard, remember, I said they have the freedom and the flexibility to engineer and design something that works. So if somebody has designed a cabinet that meets the performance levels and they used ag fiber and they've got a great resource of it and they can, provide a quality number to you on bid day, does it really matter to you if it's ag fiber or if it's particle board? Or at the end of the day, is it the performance that matters? These things are important because as we move from prescriptive, telling you exactly how to do it, the danger in that is we don't exactly know how it performs when we start telling you exactly how to do it, versus saying, hey, I just need this range, duty level 1, 2, 3, or 4, custom, economy, or premium. And as long as you fit that range with your method and you can show me the test results, that's this right here, and we're actually going to go through these things, then that's fine with me. In fact, that will be spectacular for what my project needs. So it does require a mind shift of how we think about and process things in spec writing and in what is delivered to the job site. All right, we say it, and I stress there that it all starts with testing and the test methodologies. We're actually going to go all the way through these things. I will show it as an overview here, and then as promised, we'll actually go through an actual testing report document. Yeah, here we are. We're actually loading these things up based upon the square footage, and there you get to see one that failed on an upper cabinet. It's always interesting where and how some of these construction methods break, but there are some good pictures of what we're doing. Here is a drawer box test, and I always slow down and have you look carefully at this drawer box. This joinery right here is a dovetail joinery, right? Which we typically know as to be the strongest dovetail joint, or drawer box joint is what we think. But it's rather interesting when we put our thoughts aside and actually study the science and the laboratory results of this information. So please note where and how that broke. You'll see the joint is all still intact. It's the actual wood that actually pulled apart in that process. When we do a test, I went the wrong way, sorry. When we do a test, you'll see the doors are on here and they've loaded up. This is called our functional test. And you'll see here, they're putting all the weight in the bottom and there is no shelf in this. This is called our structural test. So we have a performance and we have a structural test. It takes both tests to pass one testing report. So here's where I'm going with this. Here is our drawer box here. 2 tests, 1 report. This is a drawer front pull test. So this is if you're pulling the drawer box out of the cabinet. And then this is a drawer bottom compression. If you drop something heavy in the bottom of a drawer box, or how long will it hold on? Okay, so this is done on our machine and the output looks something like this. It follows a graph all the way up until it hits its max number. And then you see it starts to fall here, and then you have ultimate failure here. And that's where the machine shuts off. We are analyzing this max load number right here when we look at these types of items for drawer boxes. All right, so I've already said, hey, we think a dovetail is the strongest drawer box. Now, when I show you this next graph, here's where I say, hey, don't trust everything that's put in front of you. Like, go read and go learn for yourself exactly what we're testing, because I'm going to show you on this next screen here that it might debunk some things we have thought for a long, long time. Again, what I want you to study when you look at these values, I want you to study our test methodologies and actually what we're testing. And so here we are testing, we act like we're going to pull the front off of the drawer box, essentially is what we're doing there. And on this one, we literally are driving through the bottom of the drawer bottom. All right, here's why I say, hey, look what we're doing. This is data we tested. And if you read down here at the bottom, M2 is particle board. Then you'll see VC is veneer core. And we see an SM here, which is solid maple. And then we'll see the different types of joinery down here as well. And then it also talks about what the bottom is and how the bottom was applied. But what I want to tell you here as we look at this screen is we tested 5 identical drawer boxes. And so on this first one, this is a dowel screw, which is sometimes called a compromat in particle board. It's 1/2 inch sides, 3/4 inch fronts and backs. And then it is a plowed groove hardboard bottom. Okay, so hopefully that sets the stage visually as what was tested. And here is this range. We tested 5 the same. 367 is the lowest value here of the 5, and it ran up somewhere just shy of 600 on our testing machine. Now, if you scoot over here, the only thing we changed is we made the whole box 3/4 now. So the fronts and sides and backs are all the same. Well, we increased our value here, but you'll see we raised the bottom end, but you'll see the top end really didn't change all that much. Okay, well, you're starting to see here and look around at this graph, and typically I ask, what is the strongest drawer? Now, again, it's based upon our test, what tested out to be the strongest. Well, here we go. Up here, our highest value numbers, I got to scoot over so I can see around my screen. It is a dowel screw, veneer core, 3/4 inch fronts and backs. And then it is an attached screwed on bottom that is veneer core as well. So look at this. 1578 was the lowest, but you have to go, well, aesthetically, do I want to pull a drawer box out and see 2 screws on each side in the joint? And you go, well, what were you saying about dovetail? And I go, well, here's dovetail right here, solid maple dovetail, 1/2 inch fronts and backs, 1/2 inch sides, plowed groove, veneer core bottom. Say that's pretty standard drawer box. It tested out at 456 with a high somewhere. I'm going to say that's around the 650 range, maybe just touch under. And you go, yeah, but we like that fatter drawer. Here's a 5/8 front and back and 5/8 sides, same plowed groove, veneer core bottom. Well, we really went up here from the 1/2 inch to the 5/8. We went up to 617 and we got this nice tight pattern here. But if you have a manufacturing background, you go, well, I've done dovetails and they're nice, but they're a little bit tedious or they're labor intensive. Now, I have to give my disclaimer. That's not true for everybody. Some people buy dedicated machinery and they could produce a dovetail drawer box faster than they could produce any other. But think of it in the minds of your manufacturers who are bidding and reading your jobs. They have invested in machinery and they have invested in laborers, and they are highly efficient at a way. I don't know what that way is, but they're highly efficient at it. Well, here's what I'm showing you is like, what if somebody came to you and said, hey, we'd build you a miter fold drawer box? You go, a miter fold? I don't want that. That sounds awful. Well, again, statistically here, and what was tested was 3/4 inch fronts and backs and sides, miter folded. Lowest score was 772. And then these two, I don't know if they're anomalies or not, but the pattern, the groups of 3 was 1100. Well, what was the highest of wood at all? Well, the highest wood at all was 800 on the 5/8 by 5/8. Look at this. The 1/2 inch particle board here, miter folded, was their pattern was right around the high end of the solid wood. So I say all this not to say that miter fold drawer boxes are the answer for every job, and that's what you should specify from now on. But I say this to say, hey, if you just say duty level 3 drawer box, you open up, or I'll help you out. There's only like 1 or 2 drawer boxes on this whole list here that's a duty level 1 or 2. Every other drawer box on here is a duty level 4, by the way the marks are set within the standard.
Doug,
So when
we do have a question that said, is that a result of the depth of the screws? In the photograph, the dovetail joint didn't fail, but the wood failed.
Yeah. Well, what he's asking, the depth of the screws, I don't know if he's talking about this screw right here holding on the face, but really it has nothing to do with that, because you can see this longer screw coming through here. The way this mechanism is set up, this screw runs all the way through our test fixture. So it's pulling through all the way through the drawer box material and all the way through the drawer front. It's meant to mimic a drawer pull. And obviously when you install a drawer pull, you put the screws all the way through. So yeah, I mean, this literally is just how the wood splinters and splits. And in my intro, you said I'm a wood nerd, and I go, hey, I hope you've heard this before, but if not, glue is stronger than the wood itself. So when you look at this joint here, assuming it has glue in it, and most wood joineries, when they break, they don't break at the joint. The wood itself actually breaks first. And that's exactly what we're seeing here in this dovetail drawer box with what's happening. So great question. I was not in the lab when all of these were tested. So Joseph, I appreciate the response, but I wouldn't be able to speak overly intelligently to what happened here in all of these things. I just show this as a, hey, do I really care if they're miter folded or if they're dovetailed or if they're screwed together or if there's some other way that's not even mentioned on here? Here's a lock joint, you know, whatever it may be. Is that what's most important to me? Or is it most important that I deliver a drawer box to the end user that fits their function? Because I ask, you know, what if you're always specifying this one right here, delivering 1578, but the only thing they're putting in that drawer in its lifetime is this one pin? Well, if that's true, maybe you could have gotten away with this drawer box down here and been able to pass on some savings or use those resources they allotted you in some other part of the building to maximize everybody's efforts in the entire building process. So that's really what I hope I'm triggering and can get you to start thinking of what is possible with a performance standard over a prescriptive standard. So here's what I leave you with, a picture of a factory. They have invested millions of dollars of equipment. They hire employees and train them to do things a way that is probably most efficient or maximizes their investment. And so my encouragement is using a performance standard. Now we allow them to create some engineering and come up with ways that they can maximize their side of things. And as long as it passes the performance test, that is that enough assurance for you, the specifier, to go, yes, I trust the standard, I trust the laboratory, and this is the product that I need that will best fit my end user and maximize everybody's efficiency and dollars along the way. So that's really at the heart of what I hope a takeaway here is. All right, so we check out the box, we check out the drawer box, and then we also check out the shelf. So there's really 3 tests there. You got a base cabinet, you got a shelf test, and you got a drawer box. Those 3 tests, it's the weakest link is what that unit would be determined. So if you had a box that was duty level 4 and you had a drawer box that was duty level 4, but your shelf suspension was only duty level 2, we have to call that whole cabinet just a duty level 2 because that's the weakest link that it would then break at that point. Obviously on a wall cabinet, it's just going to be 2 tests. You'll have a shelf and you'll have a case test. Same way with tall cabinets, etc. If you had a cabinet without a shelf, obviously you would just need the 1 test. This is straight out of the AWS2 and talks about shelf links and how you can determine that based upon outside the lab side of things. And this is the exact same graph that we've just changed the color from the AWS2. Here's the testing reports, and I got to start going a little bit quicker. My apologies, because I want to walk you through an entire testing report. So, you know, I've talked this whole thing about performance. We still care about aesthetics, okay? And the aesthetics has not changed. So hopefully that is all language, and we did not change the category. So please know that none of that went away. Just know that they are independent of each other. Here is what we don't want your projects to look like. Unless you intended them to look this way, then obviously we want them to be that. But, you know, structurally, this thing could be very sound, and they could have a testing report that says this is fantastic, and we would have to agree with them. But I'm going to guess aesthetically that this might not been the look that you, the design community, was looking for as an end result. If we had more time, we'd have a little fun and play with a game with that one. All right, so the standard does speak about matching lumber to veneer, and we know that that is an ongoing issue or things that we can improve. And so we work with you on that, and I want to let you know that it is covered in the standard. Should you ever forget, you know, exactly what is considered what element, this is a figure straight out of our standards, and so it's there to help you remember when specifying. I know I've moved through this thing very, very quickly, but I did show you early on that our standards are completely free and available online. You don't even have to log in. You just come to awinet.org, come to the standards, and there is all of our latest standards right there across the top. It's meant to bookmark them. You can sign in and make it your own personal thing. The download button, it's not meant for you to print and get a real copy pretty version. It's meant if you're on a job site and you're somewhere down in a hole surrounded by concrete, we know you're not going to get cell service. Download it, take it in, talk to the client, talk to the installer, whatever it is you're trying to show them. And then that's really all that button is meant for. It is, though, we know that people were photocopying or clipping pages out of our standards. So we have made that real simple. So if you got something you want to share it with a GC or a team member or whatever, you can just click right here and it's going to send this exact page here in an email over to them if it will let me grab it. Here it is. This is what it looks like right here. And it just says we're sharing a page, and it's going to take you to this identical page that you are on. So you can be talking apples to apples there. All right. I shouldn't have done that. Now it's fighting with me. Okay. Lastly, I do want to close so you can take a screenshot here. If I've said anything that's triggered you, or you said, hey, I need some help, or hey, I'm curious about more, Hunter Morrison is our technical director. He is on PTO all next week. So if you email him next week, it will be a little bit on the response time, but please use him as a resource, especially on specs or understanding the standards or anything of that. All right, I've only got 9 minutes to put the hammer down here. So let's talk quickly about the testing reports and how you use them. They come, and I've held this one up multiple times. So they have different photos on the front, but they are just like a magazine is what they are. And so there it is, but here it is in PDF form. And so you can see it's page 1 of 48, but I want to show it to you today like a magazine. And so it's meant, this would be your first page you would look at of who owns the rights to these. And you have the ability, you can grant use rights, but that's a technical presentation much later on. Here's when they were issued, when they're good for. And then this is the overall summary of, this is a BC1. Again, this was the, if you look, this is the application side of the test. I call it the function test. And then you have the structural test, no doors, no drawers. We're just really stressing these joints down here to see what's happening. When I said, if you don't know the new standard, look at these values. This is 4,500 pounds per square foot. You see duty level 4 here is 330 pounds per square foot for laboratory setting. So if you jump over here and look, you're talking values. I got to look around on this value here. 1,900 pounds was put on that cabinet for 24 hours to stress that joint. Now, here's the disclaimer that's very, very important. Duty levels, you know, they're not suggested service loads, and never ever would I tell you to put 1,900 pounds on a cabinet and walk away and that, you know, everything will be fine. This was only set as a baseline data test to say, hey, we know historically these joinery and these cabinets have worked. Now let's test them, find a number. Okay, now everybody's cabinets coming in, we can test to that. And if they pass, all is well. So here's the summary of information, and of the 2 tests, you can see this individual passed them both. So all is well. You'll see it's laid out before, during, and after, so you can get a good idea. And here is the exact weights that were put on there during that. So you can see that top was loaded with 665 pounds. The shelf had 345 pounds, 50 pounds in each drawer. So there's 100 pounds there. And then 100 pounds hanging on each door as well. So you can see we're really looking at all the aspects of the cabinet and the functionality of it. Here again is that load, and I'm going to look over, and there it is. It was actually put on there 1,910 pounds for 24 hours when it was tested. All right, here's more. This gets into the actual nuts and bolts of the testing. Here is the actual drawing that we say, hey, you have to engineer it this way every single time after that. And there's the details. And here's how it had to be installed, because this is how it was installed when we did the test. Here's moisture content, photographs, all the way through the process. And then here is the test methodology. And this is where I say, hey, don't take my word, like actually read what we are testing and doing. These are for free on the AWI website. You do have to log in and go through the store to purchase them, but they are $0 when you do so. But this tells you, hey, what's the specimen size we're testing, exactly what we're testing and how we're applying the weights, etc. And again, there are those charts that we've already seen. And here is the BC2, and I'm moving quickly, but there is a quick graphic and you see those numbers we already went over as well. So when you get all done, that is the back side of this, and you're not seeing double here. That is me holding the same thing up. And we say, hey, this testing report only just says you have passed your cabinet in a laboratory. And so therefore you can build that way over and over and over. It does not replace our quality certification program, which our quality certification is going to check cabinet construction, but then it's also going to check all the aesthetic values and the installation aspects that none of that are checked in the laboratory setting. So let me see here. I've got 4 more minutes. So you go, well, Doug, where's all this going and how can I specify it, or how does it really matter to us? And I see the chat is active here, and hopefully Margaret is taking care of you. And Catherine or Mark had to run. So
yes, and Margaret asked you a question.
Oh, Margaret asked me a question.
She
well,
said, Doug, explain how a specifier refers to all 3 things: the standards, the testing report, and the QCP together in the contract document.
Well, I got it. That's easy. Thank you, Margaret. So I have 2 sample specs here, and I did not give my disclaimer again. I know I always get myself in trouble because these things are recorded. So somebody someday is going to go, he said, so here's my disclaimer. These 2 items I'm going to share with you are meant for us to learn from. That's it. And then I have some more good news for you that nobody else knows. So you guys are truly a special group here. I'm not making that up. This is probably 2 years old now, and an architect said, hey, we use master spec template and we want help to write AWI specs, and we want it, you know, strictly AWI, and we want to include the new standard. So we kind of walked them through and showed them. And for those, you know, master spec templates, you know that the blue is hidden language that you can go in and modify as well. So as we scroll down through this thing, you know, we highlighted some of the stuff that we saw, and then we would say, hey, how do we, what Margaret said, how do we make sure we get the standards in the testing report and QCP? Well, the QCP has to be specified its own thing independently. So that it would be language like this: AWI Quality Certification Program licensed participant. And then you can say the installer, a licensed participant as well. So that would take care of your first question, or the first aspect, Margaret. The standards and the testing report. Well, the testing reports are required by the standard. So as long as you said quality standards, AWI standards. Now, we put latest edition in there. Some specifiers, the feedback is, hey, we would never use that vague of language. Okay, well, here's why we said it back then, but I'm always willing to learn in the conversation. Our standards, for example, we're going to roll out these new 400 standard and the manufactured casework and countertops. They're going to come out in 6 to 9 months. Well, if you use latest edition, you're automatically covered with those new standards. If you just say AWI standards current edition or current, it's going to revert back to the day that this project was bid. So
it is an issue with certain building codes reference certain specific years of standards, and they don't always reference the most current ones.
okay.
I run into it all the time. So what I have done in my specs is I pretty much make a statement, the latest version or whatever version the AHJ specifies for their as an authority having jurisdiction. So if they're still used, because there are building codes around this country that are still using the 1974 version of whatever, or the 1983 version of whatever. And it's very frustrating to know that your documents, you're all designing to the latest code and to the latest standard or the latest ACSE or something like that. And they're still judging things against 1979 or
Yeah.
1983. And this is a big problem in international projects as well, because a certain large country over in Asia that does a lot of work where a lot of architects from America are doing work has a tendency to adopt old versions of standards and not update them. So essentially you get the same situation.
That would never happen.
Yeah, of course not.
All right. Well, what I want to share here quickly, and Ryan, I see your question. It's a great question. I will get to it in 1 second, please. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Default grade, which was old language, and then we added and duty level. So you need to say 1, 2, 3, or 4 and custom, common, and premium. And again, you could break this out per section on your drawing, however it may be, that you need to maximize your resources there. So this is where we go, hey, this would definitely be a new add to this. The rest of this is pretty standardized language here, but let me go down and show you one of our flaws. Okay, so the old language here is in drawer boxes. And this is what the old standard language said: joints, subfronts, backs, sides, glued rabbeted joints supplemented by mechanical fasteners or glued dovetails. So this old language only allowed for 2 ways to build a drawer box. Well, you saw on my screen that there's probably literally hundreds of ways to build a drawer box. But what's important to you, function or aesthetics or both? That's a fair answer. But I say, hey, if it's a glued rabbeted joint, I could maybe make you a similar joint that looks identical. This does not say, it does say glued dovetail, but for those of you who are familiar with joinery, what if I said it's a French dovetail? It's going to look totally different, but I can tell you it's a glued dovetail. It's just French rather than the traditional that you might be picturing. So I say, does this level really impact your job and truly matter? Or if you just say a statement like this: performance duty shall meet or exceed casework specified duty level. Again, because remember, the weakest link is it. So up here, if we said build to a duty level 2 on the box, well, now I can build my drawer box to a 2, 3, or 4, and I know that I'm good. But I said, hey, we didn't talk about aesthetics, because here's a line here that, you know, colors and finishes, etc. Well, if I just leave it as build a drawer box that meets this duty level, I personally probably come in here and say, you know, expected finish to be white melamine. Okay, well, now that tells me I can't use a dovetailed drawer box, but maybe I could do a miter fold, or maybe I could do the glued rabbeted, or maybe I could do a dowel drawer box. Maybe I could do the dowel screw drawer box. So I would say it needs this plus 1 level of understanding what your aesthetic values are. And so that's why I would say this is not complete. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on here because of what my good news is coming for you. And by the mean, AWI by no means is a spec writing organization. We don't have a professional associated with any of that. And so I want to be very, very clear on that. And my good news is we do work with Deltec. And so we're helping them. Barbara Larson, if you know her, she's fantastic. And so we hope to be in their new updated template. We do work with what used to be BSD and now is RIB, SpecLink. And then the new news that my board doesn't even know yet, so don't say it, is we have hired an architect to write AWI specs for every single standard that we have. And we will put that language on our website and make that available. I'm even going to spoil it 1 step further. If you're going to the CSI master format retreat in San Diego area, Coronado, I think is where it's at. You guys pick great places, by the way. We should have our finished project there in May. So hold me to that. Go ask them. It'll be Greg Parham and Rosa Cheney who will be there representing us. But we're excited. That's fantastic news that we can help you and get it this far. All right.
That's the CSI Master Specifiers Retreat.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, here's another one, shelf rest. Okay, we talked about the shelf support system. It just says performance shall meet or exceed casework duty level. Okay, perfect. That's the weakest link theory. But here's where I say it needs one step more. What if you don't want a brown plastic shelf clip? Well, I have a testing report that says my brown plastic shelf clip is duty level 4. Maybe you were expecting nickel plated or whatever it may be. But this is where we can also get ourselves in trouble of, hey, I want a duty level 4, but I want it to be glass shelf rod. Well, if I'm using a stick of glass to hold up a shelf that then has to hold 1,100 pounds, I promise you it'll never happen, or at least not the glass that I'm aware of. So that's where, manufacturers are like a little bit nervous of, well, what if they specify something that can never be built in the lab? And we're like, well, it's our job to work with them to help us understand that maybe don't over specify it. Or you say, yes, I want the glass, or no, I want the duty level 4. There, you might not get both depending upon what it is you're trying to achieve. All right, I'm going to switch screens here and show you one more spec, but I'm going to answer Ryan's question in between here. What is being done to the cabinet to make it only a duty level 2 compared to a duty level 4? Is it different materials? Is it number of fasteners? Is it joint depths, etc.? Ryan, the answer is yes, all of that. And so it is them. I mean, look, as a manufacturer, you really don't want 10 different ways to build a cabinet, because you're setting up your shop, you're setting up your equipment. Yeah, you're setting up your purchase department. At some point, there's going to be a sweet spot that you can operate in. But yes, is what I would say. It is a combination of all of that to come up with, hey, how can I engineer it to hit this threshold, but it doesn't overperform to hit the next threshold? So great question. And you're spot on with your answer and where you're headed. Okay, so this is what we see. And again, I'm not picking on anybody, and I shouldn't have held out there on the name here for a long time, but it's on every single page. So again, these are learning opportunities, and that is it. Here's where I hope I have the highlighted version. Here we go. Performance. So we're excited. Yes, this is a spec that we got that crossed our desk that specified our new standards. Fantastic. But it says manufacturers shall have independently tested report products, submitted documentation, AWI, duty level 3. Okay, so they're saying you got to have this test report, you got to be duty level 3. We're excited. Now watch what happens. And here they ask for a performance cabinet. Okay, remember that. Now let's scroll down. Core material. You must use veneer core. Okay, so if my testing report said MDF or particle board, it's now trash. I have to have one that says veneer core. Okay, well, that eliminated me. The next thing it says, there's my shelf clips that I have to use, but I want to get to where we get really, really detailed here. It has to be 3/4 inch plywood now. Tops, bottoms, and sides have to be glued and paneled. Cabinet backs shall be a 1/2 inch plywood and fully bound dado into the sides, tops, and bottoms, recessed 7 inch from cabinet rear. I'll let you read all of this, but here's what I'm going to ask you. How do we even know that all of this specific information passes a duty level 4? The answer is we don't until we test it. And so up above, he said, hey, I want to do level 4. But down low, they told us exactly what we could or could not do. And they went back to being very, very prescriptive and not performance. We could build this thing, send it to the lab. It might fail miserably. It might exceed by, leaps and bounds. We don't know until this entity would be tested. But so I am excited about the new standard, but I share this as going, hey, look, it is important as specifiers that we understand how to use it and that it doesn't contradict itself, so that both the manufacturers and the specifiers can get the most out of the purpose of the standard. And with that, I have less than 60 seconds left. So I would like to say thank you for being a part of this presentation today. I hope there was something informative along the way. Catherine, I want to thank you for allowing us this opportunity to be here. And again, AWI is meant to be a resource to the design community. And we do have an architect on our board of directors now. So we are excited about that. Yes, it was much needed. We need to understand your perspective. We need to understand your strengths of what you enjoy about our standard and things that we can do to make it better for you. And so that's only going to happen by having communication and working together. So thank you for allowing me to be here. Mark has his hand up. I would take one quick question, but I know you guys got to get on to a board meeting. Mark, if you got it, let me have it. He put his hand down. All right. I knew I was in trouble.
Thank you so much, Doug. Thank you, Margaret. This has been a great presentation. And I guess everybody knows to go to the AWI website to get a copy of the standard. And is there a way through the website to submit additional questions if, as you start to work with it, you're going, oh, wait a minute, this, or do we just call Hunter and say, hey, Doug said you would explain everything and solve all my problems?
There you go. Call and ask Hunter. That is your first stop, or email Hunter if you don't want to pick up the phone, but either one of those. And I want to be clear, when you said request a free copy, the standards are just electronically right there on the website. So they are there they are the exact standard. You can purchase them in print, but it's free right there on the website. You can bookmark the pages, all of that stuff. So
nice.
Catherine, thank you. To the audience, thank you. If you accidentally fell asleep, wake up. I'm done. So my monotone voice is over.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Doug. Thank you, Margaret. That was a great presentation. And we're right at the 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock my time. We're right at the hour. So all I'm going to say is make sure on your calendars is marked for April 14th, where we're going to talk about the healthiest building in Ohio. And I hope to see you all then. And everyone have a great day. So,
all right. Thank you very much. See ya.
All right.